There's a word called compartmentalization, utilized in psychology uh, or therapy, and we're not going to apply it in this specific way, in the specific way that it's applied as much in this conversation as would be in a textbook. That said, having subsets of your personality that can do different things and operate in different ways is in a way a very functional thing. So if somebody wanted to learn to defend themselves, they could learn karate, for example, or some martial art. And in that process, in a way, they would learn to separate and disassociate from their emotions and focus with absolute clarity only on being able to act or react to either strike or to protect themselves or to attack an opponent. We're not advocating martial arts, we're using it as a metaphor here. When people go into business environments, they often turn off their emotions, they turn off their process of soul, and they focus on, well, I've got to make sure the bottom line gets met. And my fear tells me that that's all that matters, so that's all I'm going to focus on. And in that moment of compartmentalization of business process, they subtract co-creative possibility, potential for collaboration, potential for compassion, love, and empathy, and service. And they cookie cut onto that moment of social process or organizational or business process. They cookie cut onto it a set of logical parameters that supposedly will yield a specific intended result. The scientific method, as useful as it has been in terms of defining and creating adaptive technologies, does the same thing. It's not about love, kindness, caring, or consciousness. It's more about logic and attaining solutions to problems. Any belief system does the same thing. It's a compartmentalization of focus and interpretive lenses and values and priorities. Competition itself is a compartmentalized mode of social or interpersonal interaction. All dynamics of compartmentalization are potentially useful functions. Some would say, well, you don't want a surgeon that's operating on you to be all worried about their emotions or their relationships with their wife and children while they're performing surgery. So you'd say, oh, good, compartmentalization is great. Of course, then you could say, well, a terrorist who subtracts compassion and empathy in order to be able to go kill people that they disagree with, that's an expression of compartmentalization too. So would we say compartmentalization is useful in some ways and is quite destructive and dysfunctional in others if it's not a consciously chosen process? So in compartmentalization, we also have the process of human trauma. When people are traumatized and they can't deal with it, they try to segment off the trauma in an unresolved state or part of their system, and they remain segmented until they gain enough understanding, enough methods, techniques, or support, or a soothing, supportive environment or network of connections to allow them to go back and retrieve that traumatized part of themselves and work through it in a constructive way and heal it and bring it to a level of consciousness and understanding from which they can now operate functionally. So compartmentalization in all of its dimensions is a fractal that is universal in a way. We'd say that just the cell wall on every cell in your body or in every bacteria in the world or viruses is a mechanism of compartmentalization. The compartmentalization of your circulatory system from the rest of your body allows blood to be moved effectively and efficiently from point to point and to feed or certain organs of your body like your brain or your lungs or your kidneys and liver specific amounts of necessary nutrients and oxygen So the dynamics of compartmentalization operate also in the process of soul. You could say that each soul is a compartmentalized subset of the process of God, and that there is an organizing principle there that is initially dependent upon personality as a developmental set of training wheels and construct that then culminates in consciousness and oneness with spirit. So compartmentalization is a necessary developmental process and phase, and ultimately transcendence of all compartmentalization brings us to this understanding of oneness with God, with all humanity, with all sentient beings, with the planet, with the ecosystem in all of its manifestations, the universe, however you would choose to look at it. Compartmentalization dynamics need not be the way that we operate as individuals. We would say every tribe on our planet, every nation is a compartmentalized group of souls or human personalities, however you choose to look at it, or minds. And these dynamics of compartmentalization in all of their traditional prior forms are now becoming very redundant, toxic, and dysfunctional because nations are not able to see each other as equal and valid and with care and support and love, just as genders are not, races are not, religions are not. These egoic constructs of ego compartmentalization are dysfunctional now. They've been useful training wheels developmentally in the past, and now tribe no longer works as a foundation for collaborative human effort. So we wanted to ensure that this understanding of compartmentalization, it's important for your digestive system to be compartmentalized from your circulatory system, and your nervous system to be compartmentalized from other dimensions of your physical body. If we didn't have this compartmentalization process, we wouldn't be able to have animals and insects and human beings in the world. We wouldn't be able to have an evolutionary process. So compartmentalization is good, and it has glass ceiling limitations developmentally that we can go beyond if we choose to do so as a species, as individuals, and as nations. Does it make sense that duality itself, the illusion of duality, is a dynamic of compartmentalization of reality? In judgmentalness is a dynamic of compartmentalization. Imagine dynamics of abandonment and acceptance, which we learn from, are a dynamic of experienced compartmentalization of personal reality. The current prior tribal mechanism and mode of engagement for human beings has been often to find something that someone feels a particular passion about or desire to be participative in, or something they can empathize with personally, and then to get them to understand that they have an opportunity to help in that regard. And then they're activated or motivated, and none of that's a conscious process. This is so important to say. From consciousness, we can simply observe and say, I recognize this, whatever this is worthwhile doing. I choose to be internally motivating via my personal free will to affect this result in service to humanity, in service to the natural world, in service to spirit. I don't need to have my heartstrings tugged. I don't need to have my passion ignited. I don't need to have my fear driven or triggered in order to become motivated. I have the mature, self-accountable, conscious intention to serve and to do so continually without flickering, without hesitation, without a variance of intensity, consistently. Now, how many people operate that way? How many people recognize they can operate that way? How many people intend to operate that way? And is this something that is communicable, is teachable, is modelable to humanity so that they can find it within themselves out of simple love, simple, courageous, unconditional love to serve, to look for opportunities to serve, and then to just do it without judgment, without control, without safety seeking, without being required to be afraid or driven by emotional drives that they may be used to being motivated by. That's part of their habit or their addiction, if you will, to those emotional dynamics. I can only participate if this part of my system says yes. I can only participate if my unconscious emotional process wills me to. I can only solve the problems of climate change collectively and collaboratively with others if it's messaged in this way. So if you say, if you don't heal and clear climate change and resolve it now, your children could die in the future due to climate issues. Well, for some people, that would be a very motivating message. For others, it'd be a terrifying message. There is no one message that's going to motivate all of humanity. And it's illusory to assume that there is a potential for that. Many messages can motivate many different people for different reasons. And we understand that because they operate from these fragmented, compartmentalized subunits of their systems rather than simply a conscious, single-pointed, focused, willful intention to serve and to do good in the world for everyone. Because if we've got to wait till people feel like it in order to solve climate change, if we've got to wait till people are comfortable enough to solve climate change, if we've got to wait till they feel emotionally resonant with climate change resolution as their mechanism of choosing to take constructive action, we might be waiting a long time. If we're going to wait for the unconscious, subconscious dynamics of tribe and humanity to get around to solving climate change, well, they may have other things. They may feel they have bigger fish to fry, so to speak. They may feel they have higher priorities of competition and safety and control and monetization, of greed or tradition, or a set of values that are not mappable to climate change resolution.